Okay, the first thing you need to do is open up the picture that you're going to be swapping the faces on. For this example, they're in the department shared area. You can see the link there. But if you've downloaded your own, then obviously you're going to need to go to your own user area. So I'm going to use the Bruce and Tess one as an example. Once that's opened up, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to make a copy. If we say to start with, we're going to put Bruce's face on Tess, what we're going to need to do is make a copy of this. So if I hold down the mouse on the lasso tool, then we're just going to make sure that the lasso one is selected. I'm going to zoom in by holding Control and wheeling the mouse up. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold down the mouse and I'm going to roughly draw around his face. Now don't worry too much about having sort of too much, because we're going to end up rubbing some of this out. So you can have too much rather than too little. So once you've got that selected, you're going to need to go to Copy and then Paste. And what you'll see is that we've got another layer over here. So if we then use the arrow selector tool, we should be able to move Bruce's face. So obviously you can see that it's not going to just be able to be plonked on top there and it look any good, because it's facing the wrong way and his face is a little bit bigger. So what we're going to have to do to start with is to get that facing the right way. So if you go to Edit and then Free Transform, we get the resize tool around the side, and what we can do is we can just flip his face over essentially. So at least now it's facing in the right direction. Now I think his face is a little bit bigger, so I'm going to resize that, and I'm holding down Shift on the keyboard as I'm resizing, and then it doesn't stretch or look strange, and might go a slightly bit bigger. Okay, right, so then what we're going to do is we're going to try and get either the mouth or the nose or the eyes roughly in line with where Tess's are, so that it looks fairly sensible. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the opacity over here so that it is a little bit lower, and you can see that his eyes and his mouth are roughly in the right place. So then what I'm going to do, I'm going to press Enter on the keyboard, or click on the arrow, seem to work better, and click on Apply, and that will set that transform. So what we're now going to do is we're going to use the eraser tool, which is this one here, and what we're going to do is we're going to have quite a soft edge on it. Okay, so what that means is if I just rub out some of this, it will fade in. You can see that it's faded, rather than if we had a hard brush, as it were, you would still see the edges. So I'm going to undo that with Control Alt and Z. That was just an example. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a soft brush. I'm going to make it slightly smaller with the square arrows. I'm just going to start to rub out essentially the bits of his face which overlap, say Tess's hair. Okay, and we'll bring this out so that we're keeping the outline of her face. So this is quite a rushed one, and you'll spend a lot longer on this and it'll look a lot better. Now even though we don't want to rub this out, what I'm going to do is I'm just going around all the edges so that we don't get that hard line. So you see it's quite a hard line across the top there. If we just click on it, maybe just once, that will fade it in, so it will feather the edges. So if I zoom out now, that's already looking horrible, but good in the same way. So the skin tone is slightly different. If you really want to mess around with this, what we can now do, make sure you've got your layer 1 selected and go to Image and then Adjustments, and there's lots of different adjustments that you can do. It's a little bit of trial and error when you're doing this. A good one to start with though is Curves, and what you do, you hold down this graph, and as you move it you can see the face changing, so that's obviously going too dark. So what we can do is you can move that up a little bit, and you can already see that that has faded in almost perfectly. So you press OK, and you've got a really freaky image going on. Now if you wanted to then put Tess's face on top of Bruce's face, what you're going to have to do, if you click on this eye over here, it will hide the layer that we've just done. We can put it back on, and that'll allow you, if you then click on the background, it'll allow you to use the lasso tool to draw around. I'm not really doing this properly obviously. Draw around Tess's face, copy and paste it and flip it just like we did with Bruce's, and change the curves on that one as well. So hopefully when it's finished it will end up looking at something like this one, which is in the shade area if you want to have a look at this one. If it opens, there we go. So at the end you should have something that looks a little bit like that.